You've found just stories, simple, heartfelt moments from real lives, stories that remind us how connected we all are through love, loss, and hope. Get cozy. The stories are about to begin. A cold November evening wrapped the city in impenetrable gloom the moment Robert stepped out of the entrance. He shivered from the piercing wind that rustled in the crowns of the bare trees. An autumn rain drizzled from the sky, icy drops running down his face. It wasn't late yet, only 8 in the evening, but impenetrable darkness reigned all around. He needed to cross the damp courtyard as quickly as possible. There, by the 12th entrance, waited his faithful Swallow, an old but reliable Daewoo Nexia, his main breadwinner these days. How uncomfortable it was under this gray sky. In such weather, as they say, a good owner wouldn't even turn a dog out. For Robert, however, this was even advantageous, more chances to find clients, and thus to earn money this evening. During the day, he worked as an economist at a bank. The salary was quite decent by their city's standards, and yet, almost every evening, Robert had to go out for a second shift, driving a taxi. There was a catastrophic lack of money. The funds weren't needed for a new car, a spacious home, or exotic resort vacations, although that wouldn't hurt either. The lion's share of the budget went toward Zachary's treatment and rehabilitation. Zachary, their elder son, was simultaneously their greatest joy and a source of constant pain. Robert still remembered Sarah's radiant eyes by the maternity ward's discharge room when she proudly handed him that precious bundle. Carefully lifting the corner of the blanket, he saw his son's face for the first time. The baby was asleep, eyes tightly squeezed shut, and brows furrowed angrily. Robert was enveloped in a warm wave. Could this tiny creature, this little person, truly be his child? At first, Zachary grew, it seemed, according to the textbook. He started following toys on time, rolling over, sitting up. He even started walking earlier than expected, before he was a year old. Robert and Sarah rejoiced at every success, proud of their bright boy. Robert was a very involved father. Returning from work, he hurried to his son, played with him, bathed him, fed him, giving Sarah a chance to rest. He did this not out of a sense of duty, but because he sincerely enjoyed the time spent with Zachary. The little one was surprisingly calm and understanding, never throwing causeless tantrums. Even as a tiny tot, he could be explained many things with words, almost like an adult. Of course, they often dreamed about their son's future. "He's so smart," Sarah smiled, watching Zachary, who had just turned 1, build a tall tower out of a construction set meant for 3-year-olds. "He'll probably grow up to be an engineer or an architect," Robert agreed. It also seemed to him that Zachary was ahead of his peers in development. He saw his wife's merit in this, as she spent her days with their son, reading and playing educational games. "Can't wait for him to go to school," Sarah dreamed. "They'll probably praise me at parent-teacher meetings." "And me," Robert laughed. "We'll take turns going to share the glory." When Zachary turned 1, the couple learned about a new pregnancy. It was a complete surprise. They hadn't planned for a second child so soon, but after the initial shock, they calmed down and were even happy. "It's for the best," Sarah reassured him. "The age difference isn't big. They'll have fun together." "Yes, that's a plus," Robert agreed, but something else worried him. "But how will you manage? I'm at work until late. There's no one to help. Alone with 2 little ones." "I'm not the first. I won't be the last," Sarah said bravely, stroking her still unnoticeable belly. "Others manage, and we will too." The pregnancy went well, although Sarah suffered from severe morning sickness in the first few weeks, which hadn't happened with Zachary. "Probably a girl," pale Sarah smiled. "That would be great, a complete set. Although a boy is fine too, it's more interesting for boys together." Robert didn't care who was born. The main thing was the health of his wife and the baby. Sarah was very tired. Zachary had grown and become very active, requiring constant supervision. At a routine ultrasound, it turned out Sarah was expecting a girl, and not just one. The ultrasound technician stunned them with the news. Twins. Robert almost clutched his head but restrained himself, seeing Sarah's happy face, who was smiling as she looked at the monitor where their future daughters were actively moving. "Remember how we dreamed of a big family?" Sarah asked on the way home. Robert, of course, remembered. They met at university, at a disco in the assembly hall. There he noticed the modest, charming Sarah standing apart from her dancing friends. Her naturalness, meekness, calmness, and most importantly, her wonderfully kind, warm smile immediately captivated him. Robert knew he had fallen in love at first sight. He approached, learned her name, and struck up a conversation. And when a slow dance started, he invited Sarah. Pressing her close, he understood. This was the one he would never let go of. He wanted to protect her, to make her happy, to see that tender smile again and again. They started dating, and with each passing day became more convinced they were made for each other. They understood each other with half a word, saw the world the same way. No one was surprised when they got married immediately after graduating from university. Both came from ordinary, not wealthy families. An apartment didn't fall from the sky, but after getting their first jobs, they took out a mortgage. Their nest became a small two-room apartment in a residential area. Robert then believed this was just the beginning, planned for career growth, and dreamed of spacious housing. Sarah acted as the designer. With what enthusiasm she chose wallpaper, tiles, curtains, trying to fit within a modest budget. The apartment was transformed, becoming stylish and cozy. "How did you manage that?" Robert marveled. "Natural talent," Sarah laughed. Then Zachary appeared, and now, twins. For the first time, Robert felt he couldn't cope. The family would be large, and he still wasn't a department head. His salary had increased, but a new apartment or car was only a dream. Robert seriously considered starting his own business. He didn't know yet that soon they would need huge sums of money, and not for improving their living conditions. Much more pressing needs would arise. When Sarah was in her final months, Zachary suddenly fell ill. High fever, severe cough. For the first time in his year and a half of life. The parents were very worried. Robert took sick leave to help Sarah. With her huge belly, it was difficult for her, and Zachary wanted to be held. Robert carried him in his arms for days. The illness receded, but Zachary changed. He became different. His parents didn't recognize him. The cheerful, curious toddler turned into an apathetic, indifferent child. If before he crawled everywhere, causing trouble, now he sat in a corner, methodically lining up toys, dishes, shoes, silently staring into space. It seemed he had stopped understanding speech. He hadn't spoken before, only babbled, but he understood everything. He brought toys, chose clothes, participated in games. Now he seemed to have walled himself off. When his parents tried to reach him, Zachary threw tantrums with screaming and tears rolling on the floor. It was impossible to stop him until he ran out of energy. It was terrifying. The uncertainty was frightening. The worried parents took Zachary to doctors. They threw up their hands, blamed everything on the aftermath of the illness, prescribed vitamins, and promised everything would recover. Robert and Sarah hoped, but both felt it was a serious problem. They tried not to voice their fears aloud. Then the girls were born, Anna and Valerie. As often happens with twins, they arrived prematurely, tiny and weak. They spent the first month in the hospital, in incubators. Robert saw them, tangled in tubes, completely unlike the sturdy Zachary. His heart ached with pity. Would they pull through? They pulled through. They were discharged with good weight and prognoses. Life with newborn twins and a year-and-a-half-old son with unexplained problems turned into a round-the-clock vigil. Robert and Sarah forgot about sleep, sleeping in snatches. Robert still didn't understand how they endured it then. The girls grew, developed on schedule, and delighted their parents. But Zachary retreated further into his world, barely reacting to what was happening. Despite their busyness, the parents took Zachary to doctors. At first, no abnormalities were found. "What do you expect?" the pediatrician said. First a severe illness, then two sisters immediately. The child is in shock. Give him time. But time passed, and things got worse. Causeless tantrums, restless sleep, repetitive actions. The most frightening thing was Zachary's detachment. He no longer smiled at his parents, didn't seek their attention. He seemed not to notice his sisters. Zachary's peers were starting to talk, to play together. Zachary, however, sat in the corner of the sandbox, sifting sand for hours. Sarah didn't send him to kindergarten. He's not ready, she shook her head. Maybe, on the contrary, it would help. Robert doubted. Sarah only shook her head sadly. She knew her son better. There was such sorrow in her eyes, such fear, that Robert was ready to do anything just not to see them. The worried father managed to get an appointment with a professor. It was he who delivered the terrible diagnosis that shattered all their dreams: severe autism. Yes, at first, development proceeds normally. Then there is a regression. Always. The trigger can be a vaccination, an illness, or it can just happen. You will have to accept it. Life hasn't ended, it will just be different. Treatment and rehabilitation are required. Results? Difficult. Some compensate, others don't. But treatment is lifelong, and your support. Their world collapsed. They remembered their dreams for Zachary and couldn't hold back tears. Even Robert cried, secretly from Sarah. In front of her, he held on, trying to appear strong. The diagnosis was hard to accept, but it brought clarity. Endless trips to hospitals, centers, clinics began. Zachary was accepted into a special needs kindergarten on the other side of the city, where they worked intensively with him. There was a result. By the age of 5, Zachary started talking. Not consciously, he repeated phrases from cartoons, commercials. But his parents were happy even with this. Anna and Valerie grew up as normal, happy girls, cheerful, artistic, loving. They were friends with neighborhood children, played with dolls, cared about their appearance. They often hugged their parents, gave smiles. Sarah and Robert saw these simple things as the highest happiness. Sarah didn't return from maternity leave. Zachary required a lot of time. She worked with him at home and took him to doctors. The girls also needed attention. Robert became the sole breadwinner. His salary was enough for living, but treatment required huge sums. Sometimes relatives and foundations helped, but most of the expenses fell on their shoulders. Robert worked as hard as he could, helping with repairs, driving a taxi. Robert finally reached his car and slid into the warm cabin. He felt only fatigue and despair. He knew he wouldn't earn the necessary amount even all night. Sarah had found out about a new rehabilitation method that promised impressive results. But it was expensive, and time was running out. Lately, Sarah had often hinted that he wasn't coping, couldn't provide for the family. She didn't accuse him directly, but she sighed, named sums, looked at him with silent reproach. It was unbearable. Robert felt like a failure. They had lived in the same 2-room apartment for almost 10 years, had never been to the sea, and drove Robert's old Nexia. Most importantly, he couldn't pay for his son's treatment. Bringing Zachary back to a normal life was very expensive, and Robert didn't know how to earn that kind of money. It was hard to carry the guilt for the child's condition on his shoulders. It was impossible to get used to. He also couldn't give enough time to his daughters. Anna and Valerie adored him, clinging to his neck as soon as he entered the house. It was so touching that his heart squeezed with tenderness. It was a pity there was almost no time left for them. Sarah was very tired. Over the years of Zachary's illness, she had turned into a thin, haggard woman with a hard gaze. She nitpicked about everything, unleashed her fear and irritation, argued, sometimes insulted him. Robert understood her and didn't judge. He felt sorry for Sarah, that meek, tender girl from the assembly hall. Sometimes she peeked through, and then Robert felt almost happy. But it happened less and less often. Robert sighed, started the engine. The headlights cut through the darkness. He pressed the gas pedal and set off to look for passengers. In such weather, there should be many. He even liked driving a taxi. Sometimes he got interesting clients who confided their secrets to him. He had listened to many stories. Perhaps someday he would write a book. The evening wore on. He gave rides to a few latecomers, delivered a package, took a distraught man to the train station. Several hours flew by unnoticed. Night fell, black, uncomfortable, impenetrable. There were no fares. His least favorite time, downtime. You lose time and don't earn. Annoying. He decided to drive around the city looking for clients. The streets were empty, an unsuccessful shift. And this, when money for rehabilitation was so desperately needed. Again, Sarah would sigh heavily over the earnings. Worse if she cried. Robert couldn't stand her tears. He became truly scared. Robert drove onto the bypass. It was faster to the center. It was always livelier there. There were few cars. The rain poured down in sheets, the wipers working at maximum speed. Robert glanced at his phone, almost 2 a.m. It was time to head back soon. He had to get up at 7, needed at least a little sleep so he wouldn't mix up numbers in the report and lose his bonus. That couldn't be allowed. Suddenly, the headlights picked out a human figure hurrying along the shoulder. Robert slowed down, peered closer. Strange. Who would walk on the highway at night in such weather? An inner voice, practical and wise, advised him to drive past. Something was clearly wrong. Robert had enough problems of his own. He needed to earn money, to look for fares, not get involved in dubious stories. Home, Sarah. She was waiting for money. He had many obligations to his family. Drive past and forget? But he had already stopped. This person clearly needed help. There were almost no cars on the highway. Maybe he was the last chance. Robert sighed and made the only right decision. Drawing level with the figure, he braked. Robert was surprised to see that the figure on the shoulder was a girl. Very young, almost a child, under 20. She wore a wide, clearly man's raincoat, soaked through. She was trembling with cold. But what was this? The raincoat was stretched tightly over a rounded belly. She was pregnant, and by the look of it, far along. The scene became stranger and stranger. The stranger looked at Robert with eyes full of hope and despair. Her face was wet, either from the rain or from tears, most likely from both at once. The man silently opened the passenger door. The girl slid into the cabin, and a dirty puddle immediately formed on the floor. "Please, let's go," the passenger pleaded. "Quickly, or he'll catch me." Who? Flashed through Robert's mind. Was she being pursued too? Perhaps he was taking a risk getting involved in someone else's problems. But what choice did he have? Drop her off? Leave her in the rain on the highway? No, he couldn't. So, if she asked him to go faster, he had to go faster. Robert pressed the gas pedal, and the car surged forward. He didn't think about where, just sped down the empty highway. The girl constantly looked back. Finding herself in warmth and relative safety, she relaxed, giving way to her feelings. Tears streamed down her cheeks, sobs tore from her chest, but she held back, not letting hysteria take over. Robert looked at her with pity, young, pregnant. What had happened to her? How could he help? "Where should I take you?" he finally asked. 10 minutes had passed. They had covered a decent distance. "To the police?" "No." The girl shook her head fiercely. "Not there." Robert's doubts grew stronger. Why was she so afraid of the police? Had she done something wrong? A chase? Afraid of the station? Suspicious. What had he gotten himself into? He had enough problems of his own. The girl seemed to read his thoughts. "Don't think I'm a criminal. It's just that he has connections there. When I ran away, he must have reported me. Said I stole something or something else. If you take me to the police, they'll either detain me or, worse, hand me over to him. Do you understand?" "I don't understand anything," Robert sighed. "Of course," the girl nodded. "You don't know anything. I know you shouldn't be on the highway in such weather, especially young girls, and in your condition." The strange passenger, remembering her pregnancy, gently stroked her belly. That's why I ran away. Or rather, because of her. I'm having a girl. When I think that she could have fallen into his hands, that terrible man. What terrible man are you talking about? Robert decided to find out the truth. It was time to decide where to go, and time to go home. He's my husband. Well, almost. We weren't married. Now I'm glad. Why is he chasing you? What happened? The girl, looking back, saw the headlights of a car catching up, flinched, and slid down. The car sped past. She exhaled and returned to her seat. Amazing agility for a pregnant woman in her late term. Not him, the girl smiled. Lucky. Where should I take you? Robert repeated. I need to think, the girl said, and suddenly introduced herself. My name is Vicky. Robert, the man replied automatically. Very nice to meet you, Vicky smiled. Robert chuckled. In such a tense situation, their conversation had taken on the tone of a casual chat. I'll tell you what happened. Just don't stop. Drive around the city. I'll pay for the gas and time. My father will pay. Believe me. Robert shrugged. Drive, then drive. I'm afraid he tracked me. If you stop, you never know. Okay, Robert nodded. I'm listening carefully. Tell me everything, honestly. Then maybe we'll figure out how to help. Okay. Vicky took a deep breath and began her long story. She was born in Zelenogorsk. Her father was a successful businessman, her mother a homemaker. Vicky grew up in luxury, a large house, a pool, a garden. The only child of wealthy parents, expensive toys, resorts, the best coaches, designer clothes, an elite school. She had everything. Her father adored her. She was the only grandchild for both sets of grandparents. She was showered with love and attention. Until she was about 12, she thought everyone lived like that. Then she realized there was another life. Difficult, dangerous, but perhaps more interesting. In her final year of school, she got bored. It seemed everything interesting was passing her by. She never went anywhere alone. A bodyguard picked her up from school, and he also drove her to sections and the shopping center. There was no real danger. Her father ran an honest business. The bodyguard was more of a nanny. It made her parents feel safer. Most of her classmates were the same hothouse plants. Boring, uninteresting. They didn't gather without adults to do something crazy. Her father sometimes recalled his childhood. Freedom, adventures, dangers. And what did she have? Vicky knew that after school she would go to Moscow State University, for finance and economics. Her place was ready. An apartment nearby, large, stylish, and of course a housekeeper and a bodyguard. No cheerful student life was in sight. Her father wasn't going to loosen his control. As she got older, she had more rights, but still not many. Her parents considered her small, naive. Vicky tried to talk, asked for freedom, but met with misunderstanding. You are free. Her mother shrugged. You choose your activities yourself. If you want to go to Italy, you go. What other freedom are you talking about? That's not freedom, her father echoed. That's neglect. I've seen such children. I was like that myself. I was lucky. I made it. But how many lives were ruined? You have a happy life. Don't invent things. Vicky realized she couldn't get through to them. She tried to protest. They started taking her to an expensive psychologist. The sessions were unpleasant. They spoke to her in an overly gentle tone, as if she were insane. School ended. The last summer before Moscow. The capital awaited. Something new. She hoped to gain more freedom, despite the observers. Her father had alerted all his relatives and friends in the capital. They were also supposed to keep an eye on her. A sunny June day. Vicky wandered through the shopping center in a gloomy mood. She needed a swimsuit for a trip to a resort, an excuse to leave the house. Boredom had become unbearable. Her classmates had gone away. Life was gray, monotonous, comfortable, but boring. She lacked adventure, vivid emotions. At least the bodyguard stayed in the car. Vicky had pleaded with him. He called her father, who allowed it. At least that much. Vicky went to the food court. She was hungry, wanted some junk food. At home, the cook only prepared healthy meals. She ordered hamburgers and soda. Making her way to a table, she tripped over a forgotten toy car. Fate, probably. She lost her balance. The tray fell. The brown liquid from the cup flew straight onto her. She fell, hit herself, was drenched in cold soda. She sat on the floor, assessing the disaster. Wet, her sundress ruined, hamburgers scattered, sauce on the hem. How could she walk around like this? Tears welled up, from anger and annoyance. And then strong, reliable hands lifted her. Someone helped her up. She turned around. A young guy. A handsome one. Not like her classmates. Tall, strong, masculine. Muscles under his t-shirt. An athlete? An open face, regular features, a white-toothed smile, hair the color of ripe wheat. And his eyes. Incredible. Piercing blue against his tanned face. "Didn't hurt yourself?" he asked, examining her. Vicky was embarrassed, something that hadn't happened to her in a long time. "No, just this," she gestured, showing her sundress. The wet fabric clung to her figure. The guy looked at her with interest. In his eyes, admiration. Vicky had never felt such pleasant sensations. A chill in her stomach, goosebumps, slight dizziness. "Yes, the dress will have to be thrown away. Too bad. It suits you." "Whatever," Vicky smiled. "How do I get to the car like this?" "Easy," the guy smiled, took off his t-shirt and offered it to her. "Put it on." "And you?" Vicky was surprised, admiring his torso. "Perfect." "What about me?" he chuckled. "Let them look. I have no prejudices." "Thanks." Vicky smiled and put on the t-shirt. It smelled of men's cologne and his scent. The dizziness intensified. She wanted to wear it forever. "Shall I walk you?" the guy asked. "Of course," Vicky quickly agreed. How good that he offered himself. They walked through the shopping center. He introduced himself as Alex. Vicky also gave her name. They walked, chatting about trifles, easily, casually, as if they had known each other for a long time. Vicky saw how he looked at her. She had clearly captivated him. "I liked you very much," Alex said at the exit. "Amazingly beautiful and smart. Will you give me your number? I'll call. We'll meet." "Of course," Vicky was thrilled. A date with a handsome guy. An adventure. He was so real, she wouldn't be bored with him. She would have to figure out how to meet him without the bodyguard. But she would come up with something. Vicky dictated her number. He called. Her phone displayed his digits. "Wow, what a phone you have." Alex was surprised. Vicky was embarrassed. She understood he wasn't rich. She didn't want that to matter. I'll wait for your call," she stammered. Alex suddenly stepped towards her. After a moment's thought, he gently put his arms around her waist and kissed her. Right in the shopping center, in the middle of the crowd. For Vicky, it was her first real kiss. She was happy. It felt like they had become one. He held her tightly. She felt his strength. Her legs felt weak. Her head was spinning. Butterflies fluttered in her stomach. "Sorry, I couldn't help myself," Alex smiled. "You're so beautiful." "I liked it," Vicky confessed honestly. Alex beamed. That day, Vicky couldn't sleep. Alex sent messages, calling her an unreal beauty. In the evening, he called to wish her good night. Vicky replied, but was afraid to call herself, to be pushy. They started meeting secretly. Vicky signed up for yoga. The bodyguard drove her to the center, but Vicky would slip through the back exit into the courtyard where Alex waited. How good they were together. He made her happy. She couldn't get enough of his blue eyes, his white-toothed smile with dimples. They walked, sat in the park, talked. They went to the cinema. When it got cooler, he came in his old car. It broke down periodically. Alex would curse, get out, open the hood, fix something. Strong, skillful hands. Nothing was impossible for him. This earned him even more respect. Soon they knew everything about each other. Vicky told him about her comfortable but boring life. Alex shook his head. "Yes, you're a princess," he remarked, learning about her family. "I probably won't be able to provide—" "What nonsense!" Vicky interrupted. The last thing she needed was for him to feel awkward. "You're the best person. Guys from rich families are spoiled, boring. I can't stand them," she said passionately and kissed him. "You're incredible," he said, lifting her face. Alex told her about himself. He lived in a small town, ended up in Zelenogorsk by chance, on business, sorting out documents for a business. He and his friend were opening a car repair shop, trying to earn money. There were no decent jobs in their town. He drove a long way for their dates. Vicky cherished the time they spent together. He grew up in a poor, single-parent family. He didn't know his father. His mother raised him and his sister alone. Alex grew up like a weed, hanging out with neighborhood boys. The adventures were both fun and dangerous. Vicky listened, holding her breath, regretting she hadn't had such a childhood. "I finished 9 grades and left. It wasn't for me," he said. "I went to an automotive college. Cars always attracted me. We were always hanging around garages, helping the guys. That's how we learned. Then the army. In the army, he signed a contract. He needed money. His mother earned little, his sister had a baby and was living off her. Alex understood he was needed by his family. The money was hard-earned, with risk to his life. Several years in a hot spot. He didn't give details, but Vicky understood he had faced something terrible there. His eyes became cold, distant. He grew up, became withdrawn. Something bad happened there. Vicky hugged him, comforted him. He quickly recovered. His smile returned. "As soon as the contract ended, I quit. A military career wasn't for me. The money I earned was enough for a small apartment on the outskirts, and to start a business. I had to take out a loan, but it's okay. The workshop brings in profit. Small for now." Vicky realized that Max, Alex's partner and friend, worked for the police. They had served together. They had been through the same hell. They weren't eager to remember. There was enough talk. They discussed the workshop, made plans. Vicky saw how passionate they were, and they lacked money. She offered help. "I overheard what you were talking about. You need money. I have some. My father transfers money every week. I don't spend that much. I've saved up. I can give it to you." "What are you doing?" Alex protested. "How would I feel?" "What's wrong with that?" Vicky didn't understand. "You're the man I love. You do so much. I want to help too." Vicky persuaded him. He, embarrassed, accepted. 3 days flew by quickly. It was time to go back. Vicky cried, hugging Alex. The train from St. Petersburg was arriving soon. The bodyguard was already waiting. At home, she would again wait for meetings, call secretly. How difficult it was after this weekend. Then everything changed. Alex started calling less often, replying with single words. There were no compliments, no admiration. Vicky became worried. Had she disappointed him? She went over events, found nothing. He looked loving. What was wrong? Not wanting to suffer, she asked directly. He replied that he had problems, a lot to do. He assured her he loved her, that she was the most precious. It was just a difficult period. "Maybe you need help? If it's about money." "No," Alex snapped, offended. But then he admitted that support wouldn't hurt. Vicky gladly transferred a sum, even more. He assured her he would return it. It didn't matter to Vicky. She wanted everything to be like before. Meetings dwindled. He didn't have time to travel. Vicky understood she had to wait it out, but she desperately missed him. A month flew by unnoticed. It was time for Moscow. Vicky knew, but she felt as if fate had punched her in the gut. The day before, Alex arrived unexpectedly. He found her at the university. "You're here!" Vicky threw her arms around his neck. "Yes," he nodded. "Where else would I be?" He declared it was time to talk to her parents. He insisted she call her father in front of him and tell him they needed to legalize their relationship. Vicky didn't want to, but he was firm. She told him. Her father listened, then said he would come for her immediately. "You didn't understand. I don't want to go home. I'll live with Alex." Her father didn't listen. It turned out he knew about their meetings, hadn't interfered, knowing her reaction, but had made inquiries. "He's a bad man," he shouted into the phone. "Dangerous. Don't stay with him. I knew you were sneaking off to him, but forbidding it is useless. You were being watched. I hoped a new life in Moscow would sweep you up and you'd forget him." "You knew?" "Yes. And I know more than you do. Do you know he was involved in—" Alex snatched the phone, hung up. His eyes were full of rage. Vicky had never seen him like this, but she understood. Her father was saying hurtful things. "Well, it's time to make a choice," Alex said sternly. "Your parents won't accept me. It's obvious." "No," Vicky objected. "They don't know what you're like. They'll find out." "That's how it is," Alex argued. "The choice is either them or me and our child." Vicky thought. She remembered her parents, the golden cage of a home. It was hard without support. But she was an adult. She had the right to decide, and they still treated her like a child. It was unbearable. "Of course you." Vicky hugged him. He softened a little, smiled. "Excellent. We're leaving for my place today. What about university?" "What university now?" He hugged her. "You're expecting a child? You don't need stress." Vicky almost cried. He was so caring. That same day she withdrew her documents from the dean's office. That was it. She was free. She moved in with Alex. While packing her things, she faced pressure from her parents. Her mother cried, her father pleaded, threatened. But Vicky didn't yield. Alex had warned her they would try to dissuade her. "Wealthy people like your parents consider people like me freeloaders, gold diggers." How right he was. Her father called him exactly that. Vicky felt uncomfortable. She felt disgust towards her parents. How could they? She tried calmly to explain that she was 18, an adult. "Go," her father exhaled. "But know that when you understand who he is, come back any time in any condition. We will accept you." Vicky nodded and quickly slipped out of the house, sure she was heading into a happy life with the man she loved. Her parents would understand eventually. Alex was waiting at the gate. Seeing her, he jumped out, hugged her, took her bag. "Hey!" her father shouted from the balcony. "If you hurt her, there will be problems." Vicky noticed Alex's eyes flare with rage, but he controlled himself, put Vicky in the car, got in himself, started the engine. He clearly wanted to leave quickly. So did she. Married life began. They didn't register the marriage. At first, Alex wanted to save up for a wedding. Then Vicky's belly grew. They decided to postpone it until after the birth. At first, she enjoyed the closeness. She liked falling asleep and waking up next to him, cooking for him, waiting for him from work. He was caring, bought fruit, asked about her well-being, went to the doctor with her. Vicky felt happy, loved. Alex was beside her. Their daughter was coming soon. How touching he was at the ultrasound. He almost cried when they were shown the baby. But time passed, and Alex's behavior changed. At first subtly, then more strongly. Nitpicking, joking at first, then serious, irritably reproaching her for being a poor housekeeper. How was she supposed to learn when there had always been helpers? Vicky could cook simple things, cleaned up. Alex demanded more. He wasn't satisfied with dirty floors, scattered things, a smeared refrigerator. He called her sloppy, incompetent, a slob, sighed and wiped everything himself. Vicky felt sorry for him, felt burning shame. He masterfully instilled guilt. Later, it turned out he abused alcohol. He could drink at home or come back drunk. Company gathered at their place. Max almost always came. Vicky didn't like him, unpleasant, selfish. He looked at her ambiguously, allowed himself crude jokes. Alex didn't react. It hurt. He looked at Max like an idol. Max had supposedly saved his life in the hot spot. Alex went to work every day, at different times. He worked at a factory and developed his business. There wasn't enough money. Fortunately, Vicky had brought valuable things: jewelry, clothes. All of this was sold for the business. Sometimes there wasn't even enough for food. The workshop wasn't bringing in money. Alex explained it was the initial stage. But one day, Vicky suspected there was no workshop. Max inadvertently confirmed it, laughing when Vicky mentioned her husband, the businessman. He composed himself, but Vicky understood everything. She thought then that he was lying to seem more worthy. She pushed away thoughts that she had given money for a non-existent business. She didn't communicate with her parents. Alex didn't forbid it, but she knew he would be displeased. She didn't want to anger him, her beloved, at that time. Despite the insults, she somehow considered them deserved. One day Vicky clearly understood that she was unhappy with him. He had become distant, a stranger. He only nitpicked and demanded obedience. Money was desperately short, not just for baby things, but even for groceries. Alex earned almost nothing. They lived on money from selling Vicky's things. Their funds were running out. Vicky realized she had made a mistake, but how could she go back to her parents after that conversation? She would have to admit they were right, make herself look foolish. It was shameful. So she stayed, hoped, tried to live up to his expectations. And then he raised his hand to her for the first time, the day she didn't have enough money for expensive pills. "Where am I supposed to find that kind of money? I'm not a millionaire. Ask your daddy. This child is his granddaughter." "My daddy?" Vicky repeated. "Maybe I should go live with daddy. Why do I need you?" Before finishing, she realized she shouldn't have said that. Alex's face turned red, his eyes widened, his gaze became furious, terrifying. "Is that what you think of me?" he yelled, sweeping plates off the table. "No better than your parents. You think poor people are second class." Then came the insults, swearing harsh words. Vicky stood, stunned by the rage, not recognizing him. Had she really loved this terrible man? He slapped her across the face. Vicky fell onto the sofa. Her cheek burned, tears sprang. Alex froze, apparently not expecting it himself. He cursed, went into another room, slamming the door. A few minutes later, he rushed out of the house without a word. He came back in the morning, drunk, not aggressive. This happened more than once. Physical abuse became commonplace. It seemed that having allowed himself once, he couldn't stop. Vicky regularly received slaps and shoves for unwashed dishes, burnt pie, or asking too many questions. Once she threatened him with the police. He laughed unpleasantly. "Complain. Did you forget where Max works? He has connections. What will happen to your report?" Alex couldn't be scared. Vicky's patience snapped. She decided to leave. But he wouldn't let her go. Seeing her bags, he took the key, stood by the door. He begged, apologized, promised to be a loving husband, blamed himself, assured her everything would be fine. Vicky wavered, threw herself into his arms. She believed the terrible part was behind them. But nothing changed. The reproaches, nitpicking, beatings, and drinking continued. Vicky packed her things again. This time Alex didn't apologize, roughly pushed her, took her phone and the key. Vicky sobbed, begged him to let her go. "Why do you need me if you don't love me? Let me go." "You're carrying my child," Alex explained. "You'll give birth, leave the daughter with me, go wherever you want. I can't let my daughter grow up without a father. I grew up without a father. It's hard." Then Vicky thought for the first time that Alex might not be completely mentally stable. She became convinced of this later. She tried to escape at night while he was asleep. It was impossible during the day. He locked her in. She crept into the hallway, quietly turned the key. He woke up, rushed out of the bedroom, pushed her away from the door. She fell, hitting her shoulder painfully. Alex lost control. He screamed, threw things, then handcuffed her to the radiator. Where the handcuffs came from, she didn't know. Probably Max had given them to him. From then on, Vicky's life turned into hell. During the day she sat, chained to the radiator, away from the window. In the evening, Alex came, fed her, but didn't answer questions, ignored her pleas, punished her with silence, with indifference, as if she didn't exist. Sometimes she thought, what if he doesn't come? She would die of hunger. Fear came in waves. Alex was not normal. Her father was right, although perhaps even he didn't understand how much. Otherwise, he would have kept his daughter. This was a terrible, dangerous man, unaccountable for his actions, and she was his victim. The apartment where she had been happy became a prison. One day she dared to ask, "What next? Birth is soon. Will I give birth in handcuffs too?" "Yes," he simply replied. "What's wrong with that? I watched videos. A disgusting process, but nothing complicated. Nature will take care of it." "Give birth here?" Vicky was horrified. "Yes," Alex nodded. "After I'll take the child, you're free. Be patient, not long now." Vicky went cold. He wasn't joking. He was going to do just that. This man was insane. How hadn't she noticed before? She understood that home birth without doctors could end badly for both of them. She had to act, urgently. A chance presented itself. Alex's friends came over. Max, the unpleasant type, possibly just as abnormal, and an older man. They settled in the kitchen, drinking, smoking, having fun. The unfamiliar guest asked why his wife was chained. Alex lied about her illness, the danger to himself and the child. He spoke convincingly. Max echoed him. The guests were sympathetic. The evening went on. Vicky waited. Fate took pity. The unfamiliar guest came over, squatted down with a pitiful face. "Ah, young lady, what a misfortune." Alex and Max got drunk. The guest was also barely standing. "Please, give me the key. It's in Alex's jacket pocket," Vicky asked. "Why?" The man became wary. "I need to go to the toilet," Vicky said, fluttering her clouded eyes. "Alex always lets me." "Yes," the man tried to think. "Why don't you ask him? He gets upset when I remind him of my condition. I don't want to spoil his mood." Vicky said the first thing that came to mind. She didn't have much hope. But it worked. The guest went to the hallway, found the key, unlocked the handcuffs. "Vicky, where did the strength come from?" She rushed into the hallway, grabbed the first coat she found, Max's raincoat, and slipped out through the unlocked door. She knew she had to hurry. The man must have already told Alex. He would be furious. It was terrifying to imagine what would happen if he found her. The girl burst out into the black November night. It was late, but buses were running. She ran, not knowing where she was going. In the coat pocket, some change. Very handy. The icy wind and rain chilled her to the bone. She jumped into the first bus, warm, cozy. She settled in the back seat. What to do? No money, no phone. Couldn't go to the police. Alex said Max had connections. The old bus wound through the night streets. Few cars. That's why she noticed it immediately. Alex's familiar car. It was slowly rolling in the right lane. They were looking. Had Alex gotten behind the wheel? He could barely stand. Vicky sank lower in her seat, almost lying down, causing the conductor to look at her in bewilderment. "Do you need help?" the woman asked. Maybe tell her? No, she couldn't. She would think she was crazy, call the police. And at the police station? Couldn't do that. "Everything's fine," Vicky shook her head. She got off at the final stop. She found herself at a deserted bus stop on the outskirts. She shivered. What now? Couldn't go back. They were looking. Go somewhere. Towards her hometown? Hitchhike? Someone would give her a ride. The route to Zelenogorsk was busy. Dangerous, but there was no other way. And I walked. I just walked forward, Vicky said bitterly. Sometimes I thought they were coming. I hid behind bushes. But each time it was someone else. I asked for help. Everyone drove past. And then you picked me up. That's all. Robert sat, stunned by her story. Could it be true? Or maybe she was crazy? But no, her speech was clear, her gaze steady. A decision formed instantly. He couldn't do otherwise. "We're going to Zelenogorsk," he said, "to your parents." "Really? You'll take me?" "Of course. What else can I do? A girl in your condition, without money, without support. Someone's looking for you. Leave you on the highway?" I couldn't. Of course, he would lose fares, spend gas, time. He wouldn't get any sleep again, would be late for work, get reprimanded. But that was nothing compared to her problems. On the way to Zelenogorsk, Vicky relaxed, dozed off. Robert looked at her with a smile. Good. She needed to sleep. Too many trials. Closer to the city, recognizing the scenery, Vicky stirred, became livelier. She started asking Robert about his life. He answered honestly. She sympathized, felt sorry for Zachary and his parents. She genuinely cared. It was early morning when Robert pulled up to a large house behind a high fence. He turned off the engine. "Did I make it?" Tears welled up in Vicky's eyes. "Shall I walk you?" Robert asked. "Thank you. You've done so much. I can go myself. But you... Wait. My father will want to talk." Vicky slipped out, pressed the doorbell. The gate opened. She disappeared inside. Interesting. What was happening in there? Her parents were probably happy. Robert hoped Alex and Max would be dealt with. If Vicky was to be believed, her father was influential. He wouldn't let this go. Robert's eyes were heavy. Sleep was pulling at him. He wouldn't get any sleep today. Coffee all day, sleep right after work. No question of taxiing tomorrow. At that moment, his phone rang. His wife. Strange at this hour. Something had happened. "Where are you?" Sarah's anxious voice came through. "Come home quickly. Zachary is bad. We're leaving by ambulance. The girls are alone." "What's wrong with him?" "The same as always, a tantrum. I couldn't stop him. Come home quickly." Robert started the engine. It was at least an hour's drive. Vicky's story flew out of his head. He didn't remember she had asked him to wait. He had more pressing matters. When he pulled up to the house, it was already light. Anna and Valerie were sitting in the living room, hugging each other, scared. Sweet, touching in their pink pajamas. Robert picked them up, carried them to the bedroom, tucked them in, sat beside them until they fell asleep. Zachary. Another deterioration. Money was needed urgently. Otherwise what? Nothing good. Sarah returned an hour and a half later. She found her husband asleep on the floor by the girl's bed. She sighed, covered him with a blanket. Zachary had been kept at the hospital. They warned her, without treatment, there would be serious deterioration. Life went on as usual. Zachary in the hospital, Robert working day and night, raising money. Sarah knocked on the doors of foundations, but there was little chance. The priority was surgeries. Children like Zachary weren't a priority. Robert barely remembered the story with Vicky. He had too many worries. One morning, his boss called him into his office. Robert went with gloomy premonitions, another reprimand for being late. But he was wrong. Vicky was sitting in the office, completely different, rested, refreshed, stylishly dressed, a beauty. Next to her was a man, strong, tall, with a sharp gaze, father and daughter, very alike. "Talk, you need to, and I have things to do." The boss smiled and left. The man stood up, walked over to Robert, shook his hand firmly. "Thank you. You saved my daughter." In his eyes was sincere gratitude. "My daughter is the most precious thing." I just gave her a ride," Robert replied. "Your daughter is brave. She saved herself." "She wouldn't have saved herself without you," Vicky interjected. She came over, hugged him. "I stopped cars. They saw me, but they drove past. Nobody wants problems. But you saved me." "You yourself needed saving," her father said. "My daughter told me about your situation." "And what happened next?" Robert asked. "What about Alex? Did you find him?" "Of course," her father nodded. "Immediately, that same night. That scoundrel will get what he deserves. A cruel man. And his friend Max won't help him. Alex had a difficult childhood. His stepfather abused him. There was no one to protect him. Then the hot spot. That's why he went off the rails. At first he planned to be with Vicky for the money, to extort from me. But my daughter cut off ties with us. The plan failed, and he decided to demand a ransom. That's what he told the police. He intimidated Vicky, treated her terribly, a frightening man with a broken psyche, and she fell into the hands of such a monster. Vicky listened sadly, eyes downcast. It was clear she hadn't recovered. And would she? "We want to help your son," Vicky suddenly addressed Robert. "Zachary." "Yes," her father brightened. "We found out about the diagnosis. I contacted doctors from St. Petersburg. They're waiting for the child at a rehabilitation center, with the family. Your hotel is paid for. Zachary will be treated. You can walk around St. Petersburg. There's a lot of interesting things for the girls. The doctors there are the best. They pull through even worse cases." I need to consult with my wife." Robert couldn't believe it. Could the problem be solved? "She knows everything." Vicky's father smiled. "We talked. She's packing the suitcases." "Your wife wasn't just happy about Zachary's treatment," Vicky said again. "Sarah," she smiled and said that her husband is the kindest, noblest person. She is happy. Robert felt warmth spread through his soul. The world around him became brighter, lighter.